Hey everybody, welcome to Nexus at Night, your weekly Vanguard podcast, brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/Nexus at Night, like Darren, Cole, and Josh, but I am Atlas.
I'm Matt. I'm Root Beer.
And today, after watching Yellowcard Vanguard's video, which will be down in the show notes if you want to watch it, about playing to win versus playing to not lose, we thought we would talk about that ourselves, but more in the realm of deck building.
Yeah, so this is something that I kind of have a... I think it's something worth talking about. I just think I kind of have a weird... So, deck building, I think... So, you end up with the situation a lot where you'll be building a deck. This is more common in games that have more answers. Like, a game like Magic, right? Where people are like, oh, but you can play this card for this situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at a more recent example. I was playing in a Modern Horizons 2 sealed event last Saturday, and I had a card called Chef's Kiss, which can redirect the target of a spell and then copy that spell and assign it to another random target that my opponent controls. But the problem with a card like that is it requires kind of a very specific situation. And it's like, oh well, I can. It's like, so somebody told me to put this card in my deck, and I was like, this card looks unplayable. So no, this card's actually a 2-for-1, and I played it one match or one game, and I drew it, and it rotted my hand the whole game, and I was like, all right, I'm never playing this card again. And I'm just like, okay, so why did they think this card was good? Why did they think this card should have been in my deck? And steel deck building is very restricted. There's not a lot of cards you have access to, but there's still a lot of freedom in what you're able to do with your deck. So this card is just like, I need to be in position where both of us have creatures, and then my opponent points a removal spell at one of my creatures, which seems like it should be a common situation. But it turns out typically when people are in kind of stalled board states, they're not willing to use a removal spell on a random creature. They want to use a removal spell on a bomb, but I didn't really have any bombs, which means they were never. The situation just wasn't really going to come up. So anyway, I cut the card, and I built just a kind of very consistent 3-color deck, and then I didn't lose a match.
Mm-hmm.
So I lost. The only game I've lost was the game that I played Chef's Kiss. And then I was like, okay, I'm never playing this card ever again. And drew it, because that's 2. So yeah. I think the playing to win versus playing to not lose is a very, very old discussion in the MTG community, where kind of there are certain lines where you can say, oh, I can play around every card, but it doesn't help me win the game.
Yeah.
Or I can play around most cards and have a chance to win the game at all.
Yeah, even playing just older Vanguard, even where you'd be playing cards where they were good for making one specific kind of column. If you happen to draw X other thing or search X other thing, and you're like, dude, really? Is this? Well, they're like, yeah, but it would be, as they put it, really cool if I could pull it off that way. And you're like, dude, yes, if you get that combo off, it will look really nice, but it's not going to happen all as much as you want it to. And
the Itachi Kaze, infinite 7k attacks, Liquid Luck grade 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
That never is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I think the general rule of thumb is if it's a 3-card combo or more, you're likely it's not worth the time unless you can search all 3 pieces very easily.
Mm-hmm. Personally, I think even with a lot of searching, 3-card combos are still quite clunky.
Yeah.
I think that in every game.
I guess Alchemagic kind of counts as a 3-card combo, but at least in that case, it's any 2 orders.
You're literally guaranteed one of them, and it can be any 2 orders.
Yeah. But it's, you still gotta find orders. There have been times where you've just drawn the not orders or not milled any, and you're like, shit.
I think what's more common is you find 2 of the same order.
Yes.
Yeah, speaking of, I have 2 griefs in my hand right now.
you're like, ooh, this is very cool and exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Oh, I'm just drawing 2 copies of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, I have 2 GDR, and you're like, yep, these don't do anything. Very cool.
Do you ever get multiple copies of your Persona ride in your hand, and like this should be a good thing, but like there are turns in between and all that stuff, and you're like, shit.
Oh, like you have like 3 Zorga in your hand, and you're like, oh yeah. It's like less of a problem in that deck though. It's more of a problem in like, I guess like Nirvana, where you just have a million Nirvanas in your hand, and you're like, I would like things to call.
Yeah, or for Bruce or Magnolia, that they're not too keen, especially for Magnolia, because you're like, I need this to work, but I don't need you all at once right now.
Yeah, I mean, you could actually get away with it in Zorga anyway by just calling it as a beater.
Yeah.
You do have Ghost Chase.
Yes, you do.
If you need to, sure.
But like, it's still like atrocious, and like, I don't know, it feels really bad in Nirvana.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of Ghost Chase, I was going through my Zorga deck today, and I realized that I don't think I necessarily need Ghost Chase as much as I do in something like Magnolia, which calls random cards from the top of the deck, and sometimes they're important to have in hand. And yes, it's good for recycling stuff, but I think it doesn't really help you win in Zorga's case.
I don't know if that's true.
I don't know, I've cut it. It's worked out pretty good. I think I would much rather use it for things like, GDR and, I keep calling it Cursed Seal of the Forbidden Spell, but that's Yu-Gi-Oh! It's,
Cursed Seal of the Forbidden Spell.
Cursed Souls Squirming in Agony. There we go. Yeah.
Cursed Seal of the Forbidden Spell was pretty good. That's not true.
It was a fun card. It was, not only can you not use that spell card, you can't use that spell card for the rest of the game, because fuck you. And
people use that for something.
I know they used it in the anime for one specific reason.
No, that card saw actual play at some point.
It did?
But it was like a very specific reason.
Oh. Because the whole kicker was you had to discard a spell card to use it, which means it was a minus, because you were negating something while also discarding. But that's also a hyper-specific thing where if... That sounds like a deck-building choice you make versus your friend that you play on the playground, and he happens to run 3 copies of a specific spell card you have trouble dealing with. And you're just like, alright, you know what? I'm playing this just to fuck over Tad. Nobody else, just Tad.
This card definitely sees, like, random play.
Yeah.
Just because, like, I guess if you, like... I don't have any, like, specific, like, examples off the top of my head. But I feel like it saw play at some point. For random... I think maybe a different point, like, different points for, like, random reasons. Even though it's, like, a very narrow and stupid card.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, if a deck heavily relies on a card, like, Sky Striker.
Yeah.
Like, that might be a place where it would be okay, but still not, like, definitely has a lot of requirements, right? Because you have to discard a spell card.
Mm-hmm.
But they're, like, plenty of good spell cards. But again, I don't know if it actually saw play, or I'm just hallucinating.
Ironically, you could probably use it in Sky Strikers because of how many spell cards.
Yeah, for the mirror.
Yeah.
Wait, is it? Hold on, I need to read this card again.
Oh my god.
Is it both players cannot play that card?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
Your opponent cannot act. Oh, so it's just your opponent.
Yeah.
So if you hit, back when engage was legal, right? You'd hit engage.
Yeah.
Now, they can't cast engage, but you can.
Yeah,
which is very cool and good.
Cool and good and good and cool. Yeah, I think this is trying to be taught not to do by even the anime, where in the early portions of it, at least for the original with Kai and Aichi, was the concept of a winning image, where they are told as the audience, and Aichi by extension, what do you want to do? How do you want to win? Now build your deck around that, which has definitely helped me from not making that mistake. But it's still something where you tend to get carried away looking at your, all the pulls you got from a case split, or this trial deck in a few packs you bought, or whatever. And you go, if I do this with this, I can pull this combo off, and that's pretty cool. But all it does is, move some cards around without actually either getting you more advantage or making your board bigger or anything. It's just at the end, I get to draw 2 cards, so, that was the thing.
How much those cards matter is also important, too, in the context of, the game. I mean, it could matter a lot, it could matter a little.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that, I think the first thing that ever, for me, I always kind of, if I'm building a new deck.
Yeah.
Let's say there's no data on it. There's no, starting point, right? Then the first thing I would do is just kind of build, the pure that deck. If it were building something like Nirvana, just put all the cards that care about Nirvana in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll kind of judge which of those cards are good and which of those cards are not so good. One card that I actually think all of the grade 1s in Dragon Empire right now are bad. I think Stead is basically unusable, and the 10k booster might be the best grade 1 they have, which is horrific.
That's
right?
a little sad. When you say
No,
10k booster, you mean the literally just if
when
it boosts.
boost gets +2, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
It's literally the best
That
grade.
is arguably the best one, because your other option is what? Be on hit, retire it, get a copy of your Vanguard.
But that card's not even good. It costs a counterblast deck that already CBs a lot,
Yeah.
and you just never want to have to activate.
What else are you gonna run? Every other grade 1 in the deck is less than 8k for some godforsaken reason.
So infuriating.
Well,
And so
at least 8k or at least grade 1s don't have 10k shield anymore, so running more grade 2s isn't as much of an issue.
I actually think that the lower shield values on basic units kind of recreated the same problem in V, where kind of cards that weren't triggers or PGs were just kind of useless for guarding.
But V was the thing with 10k
Or not
grade
V,
1s.
not V, G.
G, got it. Yeah.
Thought I said G, but maybe it came out.
You said V. It's also 10:30 at night for him, which apologies on my end. Stuff. Anyway,
The one that had the the G era.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you're kind of not ever you just the cards look at Bastion, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it attacks, with its 30k rear guard, right? Then you're sitting there okay, well that's a trigger and a card, or 4 cards.
Yeah.
It basically says so every trigger is worth 3 other cards within guard, which is insane. It's just an insane rate. Any hand size it means it's eaten through by decks like Bastion.
It's so funny to me that having something be 10k shield is rare. Dark States, it's a dude where you have to counterblast for 5k extra shield, and
Trash.
that's just in the case of someone swinging for, I don't know, what 18? You're like, dude, cool, great.
It
That's
also means numbers like 33 end up being super awkward to guard because it's 2 triggers out of your hand.
Mm-hmm. I'm guessing that'll get fixed as time goes on, but yeah, definitely
I mean,
real
think-
pill to deal with.
I just really hate that they would lower shield values but keep the power of the turn 4 basically the same. So basically you're just expending your entire you're losing the die roll, right? You're expending so much of your hand, even if you're against Bastion. On grade 3 they're strong. So if you lose the die roll, you actually lose a lot of tempo there.
I think there are some decks that maybe not necessarily prefer to go second, but have an easier time with it. Bruce does not like going second.
No.
Mag wants to go first, but it can deal with going second okay-ish. I'm not sure about Eugene or Nirvana, if anyone wants to fill that in.
Who cares about Eugene?
It's the main character. Someone has to care.
Eugene is not the main character.
Oh, not Eugene. Sorry, Nirvana. Brain
Yeah,
switch,
Nirvana pretty much lives and dies about how many arcs you draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you die anyway because you just don't find the cards you need.
Yeah. I get the feeling that Eugene Twitter account is going to isolate that audio clip of me saying it's the main character and be like, "This is my national anthem."
Sure.
Yeah. We can only hope. But what's going to make this even weirder, though, is we were revealed to us today, that Brantgate, Dark States, and Stoicheia are getting a third ride line. All of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting that what we thought was like a fluke in the case of Cater and Dragon Empire because of Dragonic Overlord and Phantom Blaster Dragon, I guess they just kind of healed the breach on that, so now every nation gets 3.
I figured that was going to be the case, honestly.
I thought it was going to be more encounter stuff until you guys, one of you guys
They
said,
literally said the next encounter cards aren't until March 2022.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. So I thought they were just going to wait till then, you know?
Oh no,
Yeah.
that would be really lame.
Yeah. No, like I figured that they were gonna bridge the gap as far as like number of ride lines go.
Mm-hmm. So, what were revealed to us for Dark States, we have what appears to be
A Tachikaze card.
a Tachikaze card that looks like it shops at Hot Topic and a costume store, and is like, that's what I look like. And it says the name is Gluttony Demonic Dragon Greedon, and eat your allies and become more powerful.
See, I'm curious about how eating is going to be construed, because a lot of the times when we say that, we mean putting it into soul. So, I'm curious like how they're going to handle that, because if it's putting it into soul, that would be more interesting, because it means things from Borrow Magnus that care about cards and soul could be playable in this new ride line, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
For like if you put them into your soul, or if you have a certain soul threshold, which would help bridge the gap between some of these ride lines. I think that is something that James has talked about before, where right now a lot of the themes are so different that you just kind of end up with the clan system in a different name.
Why? Because Barrow cares about number of cards in soul, and Bruce cares about blasting
Yeah,
stuff?
like it might as well just be like there are a couple cards that could have some crossover, but for all intents and purposes, we basically just have 10 clans with the way cards are kind of isolated to a certain play style. So if they made it so that there was a bit more crossover between the ride lines, that would make the nation concept matter a little more.
What we're saying is print more cards like Gungram.
Like, which one?
Yes,
The
like
Gungram.
Gungram.
Yeah. Gunroom is definitely a great card. Although it was kind of a pain in the ass that it was a double art, because I'd fucking get 2 playsets of them. Dick.
Get bodied.
What, you didn't just put them all on the same sleeve and swap them around?
I didn't have the same sleeves at the time of stuff showing up at my door, and I was too goddamn excited, so sorry. And now I'm too lazy, somehow, because that's how my brain works. Then we have for Brantgate Gravidia Nertinger, where it says, wipe out the opponent's rear guards with meteors.
Again, curious to see if that just means retire a bunch of things, or if they're going to come up with another new form of removal similar to prison.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting if whatever character ends up playing that turns out to be just like a corrupt cop, and then it also uses the prison order or something. I think it'd be interesting. It's weird that they're having it be like meteors in quotes. So
Imagine that was code for locking, because that
no,
I can imagine like putting a meteor onto a rear guard, and then that like locks up the circle.
mm-hmm. Which is ironic because this thing looks a lot like a deleter.
Yeah, deleting rear guards,
Mm-hmm. With
which would just be putting their power. That's just zeal.
yeah, demeteoring.
But yeah.
And then the last one was basically someone tried to draw Maelstrom from memory and almost got it right.
Yeah, the skill is the description is even like based on number of attacks. They ran out of ideas and literally made Aqua Force.
Yeah, ship dragon, frag bag dragon, which I thought like they were already doing that with Magnolia, where it was having stuff attacked from back row. But I guess now maybe it's going to be more about the position swapping and counting attack numbers for, like, if you on wave 4, if they bring that back.
And they're probably not going to use the keyword wave, even though they technically still have it.
Mm-hmm. Wave was such a elegant keyword for what it was. It was just something that ended up being phased out along with everything else. But
yeah,
so good for describing how the effects work. So, rip. What I do hope is that these new ride lines are playing to win and not playing to not lose. Where they're just like, we're going to print more ride lines because reasons, and then they just don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, like I said, I'm hoping there's enough crossover between the different lines that that it could make the nations a bit more generic, so that the whole nation system has a bit of merit to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards in these early sets where it's tied to that name, right? Where the one that really pissed me off is that Dark States one, where it's you discard a card if you have Barrow Magnus to countercharge, and I forgot what the other thing was.
Yeah.
And I wish it just worked either way, because Bruce could maybe make use of that if it gets more counterblast heavy stuff. But I guess they just weren't into it, so they just didn't do that. And I wish they did.
Decks like, I don't know if you all paid attention to like decks like Bastion, how they were kind of like changing over like the even set 1 metagame.
Yeah.
So there was the kind of standard Bastion, which just jammed basically as many grade 3s as you could fit in the deck, and then you played like a couple of like grade 3 event that said draw 2 cards on it, right?
Yeah.
People started playing more and more of like different events in the deck. Like there was one event where you can Soul Blast to grade 3 to retire a unit and all units in the same column or something like that.
Wait.
I don't remember the name of the card specifically, but it's basically like a huge column retire.
Yeah.
And Keter.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people started building to kind of that angle because it made some of your matchups a little better.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty solid in the mirror. Wait, where is it? It was a normal order.
Yeah.
Down
It was like
swing
it was like Soul Blast at grade 3 and bottom deck.
Yeah,
something.
choose one of your opponent's rear guards. Your opponent puts all of their rear guards in the same column as that rear guard on the bottom of their deck. So it doesn't retire it; just like sends it to the bottom of their deck.
Bottom decks it, yeah.
Effectively gets rid of it for most deck, and is probably better than retiring for certain matchups. Zorga.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom decking is basically discarding them. So people have been playing this card, and not only does it help you get problem regards that you wouldn't normally be able to get rid of, it also can quite advantage you in matchups where any amount of removal will be very, very good. Or, in the mirror, it's probably not bad also.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of another one of those kind of weighing the outcomes. I mentioned before that whenever I build a new deck, I always start with kind of like the most like streamlined version of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Basically doing little else as possible. Basically everything in the deck feeds toward one strategy.
Yeah.
And with that, you learn what cards really add to that, and which cards which don't, and how much maneuverability you have. So then you start testing things. You're like, oh, well, what if I don't play these cards that tend to underperform, and play some cards that help protect me? So you're like, okay, well, maybe I don't need, every red 1-drop in Magic, say. You're like, well, what's the problem now? Now I need creatures which are larger, and, I need spells to remove those creatures. I need to get through, right? And so you can kind of like keep kind of reiterating this process until you find a deck that kind of like can play. And obviously some strategies are more straightforward than others, but I think Vanguard is something where every deck is kind of mono ready.
Yeah.
Everything is
Kind of
what?
big mono red. Everything's kind of like mono red.
Yeah.
Your goal at the end of the day is to attack your opponent. Whether or not you want to save up cards and kind of blow up on them, or whether you want to start playing cards immediately, that's different based on the deck you're playing. But every deck's goal is to deal 6 damage to their opponent. But so that's why I think Vanguard is a bit hard to talk about this with. Just because, again, we don't have the answers, but I think Bastion is actually one of the decks that does have the answers.
Yeah.
In fact, you have the choice to play this grade 3 order or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think at the end of the day, when it comes to like, I think at some point you do have to think about not losing in Vanguard, just because the goal of every deck is to beat face and deal 6 damage. So, like, obviously you need to think about your win condition first, but at a point, you know, you're gonna have your win condition. You don't need some sort of ridiculous 3-card combo just because of how impractical it is.
Have you all played much Bastion?
Yes.
Played against it or played with it?
With it. What do you think the lowest performing cards are in Bastion, Root Beer?
All right.
Like, I don't know if you've played the standard list.
Yeah, I started testing Downswing of Justice. Where is my deck box? Hang on. I have to look at the cards I do.
Yeah.
Like-
I've literally never played the deck once, except for one time where I borrowed my friend Edwin's. I don't know.
I actually think, and this might be a hot take, I think Fasado is a less important card than Refluke.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I was going to say Fasado. Like, I have him in both Hexa Orb and Bastion right now, and honestly, like, 1 set 2 hits for Hexa Orb at least. Fasado is the first thing leaving my deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually think that, obviously, Alden is insane.
Yeah.
Yes.
That card overperforms even when I thought it was already insane. And then I think even if you play like the grade 1, like Painkiller Angel, I think the card does a lot of work.
Yeah.
It helps with really good numbers and then replaces itself if you need to. I think that the events serve a good purpose of kind of extending the amount of draw twos you have.
Mm-hmm.
And then but other than that, I think the Angel and Fasado are kind of like the least performing cards.
Yeah, like, Angel is one of those cards that, like, you kind of need it because it gives you shield value, but also because it is a card that helps you to not lose, you never actually play it as a rear guard.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, right now,
I find
I
myself
think...
discarding it a lot.
Yeah, same here. Like, I think cards that I find the most important are, like, Dark Strain to get the boost, and Alden, obviously.
Mhm.
And then it's just like, yeah, Refluke because you need Soul. Which Fasado doesn't do a very good job of helping with. Yeah, honestly, like, having played Hexa Orb with Fasado in Springfest, I have to say, like, having that many grade 3s in the deck really hurt, just because I never had enough shield value, and I couldn't call cards early, so, like, I think Fasado was kind of a card that was trying to make the deck win, where, because Hexa Orb uses so much resources, you want to try and recoup them, but then, like, runs into the problem of can't use it early, it has no shield value, and the only way it helps you win is if you actually hit with it, which people will rarely, if ever, actually let you do.
Yeah, well, because the first thing they see is they go, what, a thing with resist that gives you resources? Fuck that thing. Not letting that hit if I can help it.
Yeah.
And then any spare attack they have is going straight for it, because why the fuck not? Especially in a deck like, or either Cater Sanctuary deck, really, which both have units that have Counterblast 2s, so you want to kind of control that if you can and make it as awkward for them as possible. You want them to, like, be trudging through pudding.
Yeah, although, like, I think Bastion can kind of cope with it if it starts... Because one of the things about Bastion is because your win condition just requires you to check grade 3s a lot, you theoretically have the option of just running blitz orders for the defense if you were that desperate for extra shield value.
Yeah, if you wanted to. Definitely.
That is something because that's the problem I've been having with Bastion right now, is just, like, not enough shield value. And I'm thinking, like, because Fasado isn't actually adding to my win condition's already set, right? Just jam Alden and then and then have it swing twice for bigger and bigger numbers.
Yeah.
So Fasado doesn't add anything to that, and while the draw 2 is fairly important for, like, finding other board pieces, like replacement Aldens, because people are going to try and kill it, and, you know, just trying to find a bit of shield value. It's like, that's the only thing you spend counterblasts on, though, is just that draw 2 skill. So, like, when I think about it like that, I'm like, do I actually need countercharging? Can't I just run Blitz orders and have 4 extra 15k shields?
Yeah, and then starting next set, you can run another grade 3 Blitz order that is 20k shield. It's a Sublime Will.
And honestly, like, the double R Dragon is kind of interesting. It's like, I mean, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 to draw one singular card is kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But it also has the option of becoming a crit beater.
I think there might be an argument for playing the 15k Blitz order in Dragon Empire right now, despite how awful that feels.
Yeah, I mean, your grade 1s don't matter, and, like, it's not... The problem I'm having with building Overdress in theory is just, because I don't actually own the deck right now, is just, you need the 10k from Nirvana to gain in pressure in that deck, which means running a front row rear guard that doesn't have the Overdress keyword feels absolutely awful, because you're just giving up a bunch of potential power. But they also keep printing non-grade 1 support units.
Oh, just like grade 2s that do stuff, and you're like, what are you doing here?
Like,
it's just...
like, just today, you know, we have Urger, which I hate the way they spelled that.
I think that card's, like, pretty good. Not busted, but pretty good.
It's pretty good. I just don't like its name. Like, Urger. Or I keep wanting to just say Urger.
Just say
sounds.
Burger.
Yeah, I know, it just sounds silly. But, you know, they have, like, Blaze Fist Monk Damari and Mount Cannon. Which, I mean, Mount Cannon is bad. Damari is interesting and works well with Urger, but, like, it's also a grade 3, which means you're just giving up a whole bunch of potential power off of Nirvana.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see at the end of the battle.
Well, which one? How
so
do
you can actually
Urger?
go 13, 15.
Oh, I found it. I read.
Yeah, like 13, 15, 30.
13, 15, 30. No, then you attack the Nirvana to bump Urger.
Yeah.
You can go. So they want you
20.
to go Damari into Trickstar into
Urger.
But that's
into Nirvana into Urger.
Oh, you countercharge with the Urger. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's actually only 2 CB or 1 CB. That's actually not bad.
Yeah. Another thing is you could call since it's at the end of battle, you could call Trickstar over Damari, so you could go like 15. You can go like 13, 15, 15, 30, 30, or 23, 30, 30.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
not awful.
Just
it's something to think about.
It works. And if you're somehow for some reason playing Mount Cannon, but you probably wouldn't want to play this card because it would mean
Mount
that
Cannon is like, I don't think
this
that
card is
work.
unplayable.
Yeah, there's they revealed the cover card for set 2 today, or Virina Elgar, or Urgar, depending who you talk to, and where its effect. We'll cover it more when we go over the set review, whenever that happens. But it involves a Soul Blast 2 to do an overdress battle phase. Yeah, it's fine, but that's a lot of Soul Blasting.
Well, I mean, there's only one other card that's Soul Blast in the set right now.
In the set, maybe, but for the rest of the deck?
No, I mean, like, there's only Virina, which you don't even care if you need to Soul Blast to.
Yeah.
So you can just get the 10k and then just be like, well, but guess I won't retire.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, probably just cut Virina down to, like, 1 copy to search off your ride line for Urger.
Just for
maybe 2, just in case shenanigans occur.
Yeah, where you take it immediately on damage, although
or just draw it.
Yeah, or knowing Matt, he'd take 1 on damage, draw the other.
Oh no, I would just draw it every game. 6 card.
But Yeah, so immediately there were memes running around for that.
And Maka needs a Blaster Vanguard. I'm sad now. I was hoping I could use it for Hexa Orb.
Rip. So immediately people were making memes about that thing from the festival collection that I was making fun of during the roundup, where you like put it into Soul to give something 5k. And
I think that card is still awful.
But people are like, "Oh, you need it. You need it for the Soul." And
you just play the card that goes into Soul when you discard it.
Yeah, and
yeah, you don't have to play that shitty 6k grade 1.
Yeah, I'm not.
You play a shitty 7k grade 1.
Mm-hmm. You play a shitty 7k grade 1. Yeah, you don't go out with the guy who beat you and berated you in front of your family. You go out with the guy who just berated you in front of your family. The less shitty one. So yeah, I don't know if running cards that like get soul, because that's again a case of just not playing it to not lose. You're making sure that you can do the effects off, but I think if you're smart enough, because soul isn't something the opponent can fuck with yet. I am still waiting for a day where they start having cards that like take stuff out of the opponent's soul, but so far that seems to be something they haven't done. But I feel like it's out there on the horizon, like a homeless guy with Venmo. It's gonna happen one day. He'll be like, "Do you have change?" And I'll be like, "No," and he goes, "I have Venmo," and you're like, "Well, fuck." Now you've
Sounds very specific.
Yeah, you've bested me in the field of battle. Somebody another comic told me that actually happened to him. I'm like, I don't believe you, but I know it's coming. Yeah. So I guess to everyone else, I have to say, what are your deck building choices where you think to yourself, is this playing to win, or is this built to win or built to not lose? Think about that next time you have your deck fanned out on your bed, like I'm about to in about 5 minutes here. Because gotta redo Bruce again.
I have an important question.
Yes.
It is unrelated to the episode, but I want to talk about it. Did you all see the Nintendo Direct?
Yeah.
Did you all see the most important game in the Nintendo Direct?
Breath of the Wild 2?
God, no. Metroid Dread.
Oh.
Yeah, right? Finally.
2D Metroid in the 2021, the year of our Lord.
Right. And it's like continuing from Fusion and not some random reboot.
I didn't even realize it was on the table. I didn't even know it was a thing we could want.
I know, right? I mean, we're still waiting for Metroid Prime 4, but...
Oh, I don't care about that anymore. I want a 2D Metroid more than I want a 3D Metroid.
I just remember that first Metroid Prime where people were like, holy shit, first-person Metroid.
Yeah, and then they made Other M, and people were like, kind of off it.
Yeah. No, I haven't. I only watched the part for Breath of the Wild 2.
What that means?
Gross.
You also missed. There's a WarioWare. That's pretty exciting.
Oh, neat.
Wait, where did I put my hand for?
Last one I played was Smooth Moves on the Wii, a long time ago. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the Nintendo Direct or whatever. Thanks for listening to the show. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at Nexus at Night, or if you want to support us, patreon.com/Nexus at Night. Thanks again to Darren, Cole, and Josh. Where can they find you guys?
You can find me on Twitter at Wiggums2Gs.
You can find me at Plasma Eclipse.
And then find me at Atlas Novak, Twitter or Instagram. And thanks to everybody for listening. I just did 2 podcasts in a row and I'm tired. Until next time, I was Atlas.
I'm Matt.
I'm Root Beer.
And have a good night, everybody.